And we have new developments in this, a twist and escalation in the New York probe, which is one of those cases Nicole just so expertly reviewed. The person who received the payment at the center of that inquiry, Stormy Daniels, made a surprise appearance today, brand new today. You've heard her name a lot, but this is a new discussion that she had, legally binding, with the prosecutors on this very probe. That news broke this afternoon. Her lawyer confirming she spoke to those prosecutors at the Manhattan DA's office, and she is willing to be a witness in any potential indictment of the former president, her lawyer said. She herself posting she will fight for truth and justice. Now, Stormy Daniels matters because the case could turn on whether Trump broke a law with the money that he sent her way, and whether he hid that by falsely claiming that that was not for her, but was money for a lawyer. It's a factual point that we discussed with Trump's current defense attorney on The Beat last night. Is Stormy Daniels a lawyer?
Is Stormy Daniels a lawyer?
Yeah.
A lawyer?
Yeah, is Stormy Daniels a lawyer?
Don't think she's a lawyer. I don't think a lawyer was a lawyer either, but Stormy Daniels is not a lawyer.
Daniels is not a lawyer. That fact is established. You just saw in real time Trump's current attorney concede that obvious fact. Now, it matters because some of this may add heat if the DA can prove that Trump lied to authorities about where that money went. Now, Trump has been caught lying in public already about all this. The current defense, by his lawyer, argues the money was a legal fee because it went to then lawyer Michael Cohen. So she's not a lawyer, and these payments were made, and they were, according to federal filings, classified on the Trump side as legal services. That was false, wasn't it?
The payments were made to a lawyer, not to Stormy Daniels. The payments were made to Donald Trump's lawyer, which would be considered legal fees.
That lawyer was Michael Cohen, who went to prison and was back testifying to the grand jury today, which Nicole and I just discussed, and he gave his remarks to her. So Donald Trump's new lawyer is blaming the whole thing basically on his old lawyer, which is effectively a guy that the new lawyer, Joe Tacopino, replaced. So there's a lot going on. Indeed, there's more than one potential case, as Nicole and I discussed. But right up front, I just want to pause. Just consider what a legal mess this incident has already become for so many people around Donald Trump. Trump lawyer Cohen went to prison for this payment and other crimes. The lawyer on the other side of that case, Michael Avenatti, who Joe briefly mentioned in that exchange I showed you, Mr. Avenatti went to prison for his own misconduct related to Stormy Daniels as well as other cases, after drawing scrutiny for being involved in this case, which continues to live on. And now, the lawyer, filling the role that Michael Cohen held, Joe Tacopina, is launching a defense partly blaming any problem here on Cohen, on his predecessor. It's lawyer versus lawyer, with Cohen now responding to Tacopina's latest remarks outside where he testified today.
Do you feel vindicated?
This isn't a question of vindication. It's not a question, as I stated before, about revenge. This is not about him. This is about holding accountability, truth to power, and everything else in between.
Joe Tacopina said this lacks legal merit. What do you make of that? I think Joe Tacopina needs to take a refresher course.
Cohen impugning Tacopina's legal knowledge, while in our interview, Mr. Tacopina hammered Cohen as both allegedly here the real criminal, and fact check, Cohen was convicted of crimes and did serve time, and as an unreliable witness today. Now, those are two different things. They can relate, and a jury can obviously factor in someone's history, but if you've ever seen any mafia movie, any court drama, I bet you've seen people convicted of crimes who still are used as witnesses, sometimes key witnesses, eyewitnesses, sometimes witnesses who a jury says prove the case. So we'll see what happens if there is a charge. But there was an insistence here by Mr. Tacopina that even if that payment was for Daniels, it was not linked to Trump's campaign.
This would exist irrespective of the campaign.
You're making a potential defense that he would have paid this out regardless.
It's not only would I say that, his lawyer at the time, who pled guilty to all sorts of lies and frauds, who's now a cooperator, said that under oath. He said that under oath.
Can you point to other payments that Trump made like this outside of a campaign?
During the time of the campaign?
Outside of that campaign year, in his other many years on planet Earth, has he ever made a payment like this?
I have no idea, Ari. I have no idea. But Donald Trump is a litigious individual who gets sued by a lot of people, okay, commences lawsuits, and all the time things are settled.
Tacopina did not offer an example of any similar payment made outside of a campaign season. He just said, as you heard there, he had no idea. Then we showed evidence of Trump lying about all this, leading to a sharp exchange, and Trump's current lawyer, you see there, trying to grab the paper with Donald Trump's own words, with his quote, which drew headlines of its own. If all of what you say is true,
It is.
then why was Trump hiding it and lying about it at the time? And I'll play that for your response. He lied about it. We all know that.
When you
Take
say
a
he
look.
lied about
Take
it,
a look.
Let's see.
Mr. President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make this if there was no truth or allegation?
You have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Ari, that's what you're going to consider a lie. A lie to me is something material under oath in a proceeding.
Well, I didn't say perjury. I said a lie.
Yeah, but that's not a lie. That's
not a lie?
Here's why it's not a lie.
That's not a lie?
Here's why it's not a lie.
Did you know about this? Did you?
Put the paper down. Let me answer.
Did you know about this?
Yeah,
no, I don't.
No, we don't need that.
We do need that. Evidence matters in journalism and certainly in court, if this ever gets to court. Tacopina's answers made news and headlines of their own, both for that lunge, also for the proof Trump lied, other answers and admissions. That's just some of the coverage today. So apparently some evidence is so damning a lawyer would rather wish it away. That paper just had Donald Trump's words written out. And it shows people, in this case, people paying attention or potentially a jury, one thing that is true, and it doesn't mean Trump is guilty. There's a process, but it does show he was lying about this. Now, here's a little bit of that exchange.
Here's why it's not a lie.
Yeah.
Because it was a confidential settlement. So if he acknowledged that, he would be violating the confidential settlement. So is it the truth? Of course it's not the truth. Was he supposed to tell the truth? He would be in violation of the agreement if he told the truth. So by him doing that, he was abiding by not only his rights, but Stormy Daniels' rights.
It seems like we're drawing some blood here because you're having a strong reaction. He did lie about it, and in a confidential settlement, you can easily say, no comment, or I'm not getting into it. He says, and the reason why I look at this, he says, no, I didn't know about it. But he did know about it, didn't he?
Yeah, he could have said no comment, or he could have said, I don't know anything about it, which is what he did. But that's the right. I would advise my client to do the same thing.
Now, that defense is inconsistent. Tacopina denies it was a lie, then claims his client had to lie because of the settlement. Not true. And then he concedes that the previous defense was not true. He literally says that on live TV. Let's hear just that part.
So is it the truth? Of course it's not the truth. Was he supposed to tell the truth?
Of course it's not the truth. You don't get that every day. Now, whether or not he says that here in this forum or any other, I always try to keep it transparent, keep it 100 with you. And I will tell you, whatever you think of Mr. Tacopina, that skilled trial lawyers can and do make multiple arguments sometimes. They offer different arguments in the alternative and even what to someone outside of court would look like contradicting defenses. So you could float a trial balloon defense. You could say, we didn't do it, but if we did do it, here's why it's not a crime. Here's why it's justified. So whatever, again, one thinks of Mr. Tacopina, this is within the realm of what trial lawyers can do. It doesn't mean they always win with it, but it's what they do. It could work. Admitting that lie alone doesn't prove the whole case. But if you're dealing with a client about misleading the government and you're caught misleading the government, that adds to the actual evidence, testimonial and otherwise, that a jury will consider, especially if the case is about whether they believe beyond a reasonable doubt you have criminally misled the government. Lying in public can add to that evidence. In this case, the lie would seem to be about the actual payment, which is what the DA may want to focus on. It's what the DA may want to focus on, and it's what we're all focused on when we take it all together based on what we think is going on here. Mr. Tacopina is not denying there are past lies, nor is he and the legal team denying that Donald Trump was offered this fairly severe measure of being able to go into the grand jury. which he declined, which is his right. Now, that doesn't mean he's about to be charged. We don't know that. We do know they're taking it seriously, and we do know they're throwing multiple things at the wall. And we do know that to make this all make sense, you have to both hear the evidence, hear both sides, in this case, the damning evidence against Trump provided by Mr. Cohen and others in that prior federal case, as well as what Mr. Trump's current counsel are saying.